is angiosperms, which are seeds of flowering plants. So they're enclosed seeds that are protected in a carpel. So that can become a fruit, which can be hard or soft. And so fossil records kind of show them emerging about 125 million years ago. So yeah, they're well before us, put it that way. So here's the oldest angiosperm. So it's a shrub called the Amborella. It grows in New Caledonia, and it can actually be shown to be related to all later angiosperm. So here is a diagram of the structure of seeds. So you've got the embryo, and then you've got the seed coat, also known as a tester. So the embryo itself consists of the plumule, which is sometimes a bit hard. I managed to get it out this time, but it's quite difficult to say sometimes, which will become the stem. And then you've got a radicle, which will become the first root. And then you've got either one or two seed leaves. So seeds with one leaf are monocots, and seeds with two leaves are dicots. So examples of monocots are, grasses, bamboo, sugarcane, lilies, irises, orchids. And monocots are actually believed to have evolved quite recently, more recently at least. So the seed coat is actually perforated at one point called the microphyll, and that allows the water and oxygen to get into the seed when it germinates. The overall coat kind of acts as it's a protective layer, protecting the embryo of the seed from physical damage and I guess the elements really. And it can be quite tough, as in coconuts, for example. That external layer is the tester. So some seeds have a hilum, which is a scar that shows where the seed was once attached to the ovary wall. So you could sort of imagine it a bit like a belly button, a human belly button, basically, as the equivalent for us. And actually, the bulk of the seed is the endosperm, which is the food store, and that is where the fuel for the seed, while it sits there dormant, and until the point that it germinates and then breaks through the soil, it requires that fuel inside it to kind of get it going. So these images here. So on the left, you've got a picture of the orchid seeds, which are really small. They're like dust. They actually have no endosperm. They're so small, and with that, each plant produces, as you can see, just thousands in there of just an uncountable sort of number each season. They actually rely on the fungi that develops with the seed, and that provides the food it needs, and hence it doesn't require an endosperm. And then on the right, you've got the largest seed that we've ever found, called a coco de mer seed, which, as you can see, is massive. And it looks like many other things, but you can judge that for yourself, I reckon. So seeds are generally a product of the sexual reproduction process, providing genetic variability. And annual plants use seed production as a form of dormancy. So on the topic of dormancy, seeds can actually be dormant for a very long time. Now, as Taj said, some, you'll get in the packet and they're not going to last for a few months, a year, and then, they're not, that fuel source inside them is not going to last, and, they're not really viable anymore. But this is a Judean date plant, and the seeds were found in what is now Israel, but they were found after what they found to be 2,000 years of lying buried in a fortress. And yeah, they found them and put them in the ground, and what you would imagine to be dead was alive, 2,000 years later, which is pretty amazing. But as we said, there's not in all cases, so they do need that endosperm to keep them going. So some of the processes for the seeds to actually kickstart into that germination process from dormancy, are, for example, stratification. So some seeds require some time spent in the cold. So on the left, you've got Echinacea. Echinacea seeds can actually benefit from spending a month in the fridge. So these are the little things which would be, I guess, handy to look into, when it comes to particular plants. And if you're unsuccessful with particular plants, you might find these little tips, which you probably wouldn't be putting your seed in the fridge. So it could be pretty handy. And then on the right, we've got silk tree seeds, well, silk tree plant. And so the seeds in a botany department of the British Museum sprouted after it was hit by a German bomb in the Second World War. And that included the seeds of the silk tree that they collected in China. So it's just an example of extreme heat or cold that can be required to actually get the seeds to sort of kickstart into life. You've also got scarification. So the seed coat needs to be scarred for the seed to actually germinate. So this could actually happen by passing through the digestive tract of an animal, which you may know, and that's a little natural process for seeds to spread, as animals eat fruits, and they go and spread these seeds around the environment. Also, soaking a seed in water can remove natural chemical inhibitors from the seed. So sweet peas, for example, benefit from soaking water. And if you've got any sprouting, you might eat some sprouting beans or seeds at home. You see, if you leave them in water for a day, then you see they start sprouting basically. So then actually the depth of planting is something that I guess people tend to ask about actually, and that can be quite important. And we usually say as a rule, sort of go as deep as the size of the, a layer of soil over the similar size to the size of the seed actually, which I'll show you a bit later on. But that is actually in relation to how much food reserve the seed has inside it. So if you plant a small seed too deeply, by the time it's used that fuel source, it will have exhausted that reserve before it actually can break through the surface of the soil, and then manage to start using photosynthesis to make their own food to keep going. So those things can be important. So yeah, and I will pass over to Sarah now.
Sorry, rookie error. I forgot to unmute myself. I should point out I do this for a living and I still do it all the time. All right, so yeah, just to continue what Rish was talking about what the seeds need for germination. So Rish found this table that I thought was really useful about what the different types of seeds need in terms of temperature, because basically the temperature affects the metabolic rate of the cells and the rate of the enzyme activity. So if it's too cold or too hot, the seed kind of like shuts itself down. So it's really important when you're trying to germinate seeds that we keep a kind of like a stable temperature. But here you can see like the different seeds require a different minimum temperature, which could relate to what Taj was saying earlier about, sometimes you put things out too early, and if it's too cold, they won't survive. So things like aubergines, courgettes, they need it to be much warmer than something like lettuce, where it can manage quite a bit colder. So the temperature is really important, but some other things that seeds need would be water. It helps to activate the enzymes that gets the seeds to kind of digest the food reserves that Rish talked about earlier. Of course, they also need oxygen, just like we do, so they can kind of breathe in a way to burn energy and use that heat, the energy source that they have. And then finally, they need light because of the photosynthesis process that they go through. So they need a reasonable temperature, enough water, but not too much. I think Rish is going to show you a bit about that later. They need oxygen and they need light in order to germinate. So if Rish, you could click over to the next slide for me. Sorry. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about like what actually happens when a seed germinates, because I thought this was quite fascinating. So once the seed, I'm sorry, I'm kind of reading this in my notes. My biology is awful. But once there's enough water in the seed, the germination starts. And there's like some different chemical reactions. So basically they break down the food reserves, proteins become amino acids, and carbohydrates become sugar. And then they kind of regenerate these food reserves a little bit more, and they become, the seed actually at one point loses weight, which I didn't realize. And then because it's used up its food reserves during that process. And then the food that's left over, once the seed starts to produce its green leaves, any like leftover food reserves just kind of shrivel away because it doesn't need it. So once its green leaves come out, it doesn't really need the food reserves anymore. And if Rish, sorry, can you just click to the next one? You can kind of see the process a little bit more clearly. So you can see in the picture, like slowly over time, the root or the radicule that Rish referred to earlier, it starts to come out, which so that it starts to grow downwards. And then the pumule, which is the shoot, goes upwards. So they go up in opposite directions. And then there's sort of two ways that seeds grow. Either the root grows, forcing the seed out of the ground, so that because the root becomes bigger, the seed comes up, or the shoot grows and it leaves the seed behind in the ground. So the ones where the seed comes out of the ground are things like beans, courgettes, cucumbers, pumpkins. And then the sort of shoot part elongates and forms the first leaves. And then some parts of it kind of decompose. That's like peas and things like that. And then Rish, if you could get to the last one. So the last thing we need to think about, really the last part that the seeds need, is the seed compost. So generally the rule of thumb is that you need soil that's free draining, because that will help the seeds to stop rotting. Usually if you buy a particular seed compost, it doesn't have a lot of fertility in it. It doesn't need to be particularly rich because the seeds themselves have their own source of food. You know, inside they have food reserves. They don't need to take it from the soil quite as much. Actually, if you plant seeds in soil that's too fertile, they grow too quickly and they become leggy. Which is quite a common problem. Definitely something I've seen, that they get too sort of spindly and weak and feeble, and that's often because there's too much nutrition in the soil that you're using. And it's also possible to make your own seed compost. You can use things like leaf mold. Of course, peat is an option, but not a very eco-friendly one, so probably not the best thing to do. And then once you get to the seedling stage, where the sprout has come out and the root's gone down, that's your seedling. They're really vulnerable. They're basically the toddlers of the plant world. So we need to kind of give them, you know, a bit of gentle care. So some plants produce a lot of seeds, so they can feed others, and then they give some to the seedlings to give them the chance of surviving. So I think Rish is going to demonstrate how to plant.
Okay.
And then maybe later we can like discuss what kinds of soil and things you guys are using for your seedlings and seeds, to see if we get some good tips from the more experienced gardeners.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just switching over here to show you guys. I've lost you for a minute. There we go. I can see you all. Okay, great. Okay, so I have here a few different seeds which we are going to get over to everybody. I'll try and separate them out and show you. So I've got 5 different types of seeds here. So let's start from here. This is one of the favorites, especially Joe, Iris, I believe, favorites here. Some coriander seeds right here in this corner. Right here in this corner, I'll pick one out just so you can have a little look on my finger there. Little round seed, quite a nice shape. I do like coriander. A lot of people here would be using coriander, I think, as a crucial ingredient in their cooking at home. So that's some coriander seeds. And we've got some beetroot, the Cylindra variety. So there's, try and show you, hold on. I'll stick up my finger, I think you can see it a bit better. So it's got a nice little texture to it. But again, when you get hold of one, it'll be easy. It's just with these cameras, I don't know how well it all appears. Anyway, and then now we've got some dahlia seeds. So as you can see, the variety of shapes are quite huge, really. These are sort of 6 mil long, 6 odd mil long, I'd say. And yeah, they're sort of a flat seed in comparison to the other ones I just showed you. And in the middle here, these long seeds. So again, a completely different shape. These are marigold leaves. So these are actually a red variety. That's a little picture there of what they'll look like. So again, yeah, very, very different shape completely. And then the smallest little ones we've got here are some parsley leaves, and the coriander, the coriander seeds are flying around everywhere, but you can see in comparison how small they are, just tiny little bits, just like really, really tiny. So all of these, I guess, as far as planting, will need slightly different conditions. So we can do a few, and I can show you, how to do that. So I've got some soil here. I've got a few little small pots. So I've got this compost, which is actually what I had at home. It's a multi-purpose compost, which you can use. As we were saying earlier, ideally you don't want something that's too nutrient rich, because it's just a bit too much for new seeds, basically. So you do get the kind of when you go to the garden center, you'll see compost mixes, which are for planting seeds, actually. But I've found this works just as well, really. So there's a few ways to go about this, but let's kind of get some soil in there for starters. So I usually scoop a bit up in there. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have done stuff like this before, of course, but just we'll start from the basics, I guess. And yeah, I like to just knock it down a little bit, let the soil settle. We just don't want loads of air in there. So ideally then to use another pot, another sort of, or your fingers if you like, just to damp it down slightly. You don't go overboard, but just, you also want to push a bit of the kind of the air out of it, so that the seeds are sort of fully in contact with all of the compost, really. Is the lighting good? Can you see clearly? I know obviously it's compost that we're working with here, so there isn't much color, but hopefully I'll bring it a bit closer when we put some seeds in, just to show you. So now when it comes to water, there's two ways to go about it. One is to actually water the soil first, and the other is to water after. Now, if let's say I'm to water the soil right now, I've got a little bit of water here and here, and if you already had seeds in here and you were to use a jug and you were to pour water straight into here, what you might find is, if I start doing it and not get my whole computer wet, is that it will just going to throw all your seeds up. If you're working with really small seeds, it's going to throw them up all over the place, and wherever you place them, it's going to be pretty useless. Now, I'd packed this pretty densely, but it has sort of pulled all the sort of loose soil down and around. So there's a bit of a pit in the center now. Again, it's not that clear, but if you did go about it this way, it would probably throw them all off, and it probably wouldn't be ideal. But you can then, if you were to, put some water in before the soil, is then top up a little bit more, pat that down a little bit, and then you can go ahead and put some seeds in. So let's say we use let's do some coriander. Let's do some coriander seeds. So I mean, I guess another question that comes up now is sort of spacing, and I'd say it does depend on the size of the sort of the plant, the kind of plant that's going to come through that you're planting, really. And really the next step, which would be potting on, which hopefully if people would like it, we can do a session on potting on, is a case of, once these have all germinated and come through and you get to the point of splitting them up, that will be important. If they're very densely packed and they're all grown, then it's going to be quite difficult to pull them apart without sort of tearing the roots up, you know. So with the coriander, let's say, I mean, look, I personally haven't been too pedantic about little details, and things have grown for me, but I do realize it doesn't always work for people. But let's say with the coriander, with that size there of seed, and I was to put in maybe 3, yeah, put in 3 seeds and just give them a little push down. So like I was saying earlier, we kind of want a layer of soil over the top of the seeds that is about equivalent to the size of the seed. So I've kind of patted them, pushed them in slightly. Then what I do from there really is just sprinkle a bit of soil over the top, just to get just a little amount. Actually, that's probably a little bit too much, but it's a small amount, and sort of spread that around. And I reckon that's good. Yeah. And then now, if you were to now water this, I did put some water in earlier, but if I was to put water on top of these seeds, and let's say they're even smaller, one of the ideal ways to do it was to be to use a mist spray or any of those little any spray cans, any watering cans with the little small nozzles on it. So you're not pouring in a whole huge amount of water, which just throws them all off and moves them out of their place. I've got a really tiny little sprayer here, but I'm sure you can imagine, I'm sure people have got different kinds of little sprayers, but a little spray with that, and you know, it doesn't upset the soil too much, you know. So there's that. So that's there. And again, don't forget to label these, because you might think you're going to know what they are, but once they start coming up, just, yeah, you won't. Honestly, you won't. So I mean, ideally, in an ideal world, you have some nice little lollipop sticks, or you can recycle some bits of plastic maybe that you can push in as labels. I love masking tape, and I don't have lollipop sticks today. So what I've done is taken a little piece of masking tape, folded it on itself, and written the coriander label on it, as you can see there. And I'm just going to stick that on the side. And to me, that works just as well at the moment, until it gets really wet and probably doesn't work. But you can always come up with some, you know, some good ideas for labeling your plants, and it is useful to do that. So kind of don't overlook that element, I'd say. Okay, so let's plant some really small ones. We'll do the parsley seeds, just because they are so small, and you can get an idea of how to go about that. So just like to use the base of the pot to damp it down a little bit. Break up some of the lumps. So the parsley leaves being so small and coming in such sort of in such a kind of great quantity, I'd say what you can do with those really is actually just sort of, you can sort of sprinkle them around, give them a little room, but you can just sprinkle them on top. And these really being so tiny, you can do a really fine layer of compost on the top of those, really fine, if anything, just because they're so small. And like we said before, you know, the fuel, the endosperm that they have, to, you know, that provides a fuel for them to push out of the soil. You know, it won't be enough if it goes too deep. And maybe that's, you know, a situation that you found where things have been unsuccessful just because they are a bit too deep. One tip I have found actually is a lot of the seed packets do give you a clear indication of how deep to go. Again, I personally have not been too pedantic about getting really on point, and I've been successful. I realize this doesn't always work for everybody, but I reckon maybe a little singing, maybe a bit of just giving the plants a little love and see what happens, you know. Anyway, okay, let's do let's go for the dahlia seeds. So let's get a little soil in there. So with the dahlias, now they're a different shape altogether. So with these guys, if I can pick them up. So again, they're that that shape there. You can see hopefully. And yeah, I just push them down into the soil, into the compost. And again, the idea is for them to go as deep as they are, as their size, basically. So you can push them a little bit further with these guys just because they are that much bigger. And I'll put 2 of them in here. We can sprinkle a little soil on there and give them a bit of a watering. They could do with a bit more. Yeah. Yeah, again, like I said, this isn't the ideal little bottle, but I'm sure if you can find something at home that is more suited to it. And again, label those up. I haven't done that because I'm not going to do that on your time, but very important to do that, you know. But yeah, okay. I think I'll hand it to Sarah. We can do some questions and yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Rish. So yeah, we thought we would finish the session today with just sort of like a question and answer, bit of the discussion. And one thing we wanted to kind of talk to you guys about was if you had any kind of tips, anything you've picked up along the way. I know, Francis, you very kindly sent us a picture
Which I'm going
of
to
a
share
tip.
that now.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Of a
I'll share
tip
that
you've
now.
picked up. Do you want to explain it?
Oh, sorry.
It's Maddie congratulating you, Rish. Enjoyed it.
Yes, sorry, this isn't my idea. I think I heard it on Gardener's Question Time. But basically, they're suggesting that if you're growing little seedlings on a windowsill, they need lots of light and they all tend to lean towards the light. But if you have a piece of cardboard behind them, oh, like that, and you cover the cardboard, thank you, you cover the cardboard with kitchen foil, with the shiny side upmost, it reflects the light and you can see that they're growing pretty well straight up rather than leaning towards the window, which they often do. And so we did it with a sort of biggish cardboard box where you had the flaps. So one of the flaps is underneath the seed tray or underneath the tray that all your things are sitting in. And then the other bit stands up straight at the back. And it really does seem to work and it's so easy. We realized just today that one of my seeds wasn't doing very well, but it was beyond the silver foil. I hadn't made it to go all the way along the windowsill. So not my idea, but I really think it is wonderful. So good luck with it.
Yeah, it's a great tip. I think is this a propagator? I think I have the same one, the windowsill one.
Yes, yes.
But mine are all leaning towards the window, so I think I'm going to try that. Taj, is there something you wanted to add? Oh, Taj, if you just unmute your microphone for us.
What I wanted to say was that I have put a lot of things on the windowsill. So my process of starting seeds is that I tend to put in the soil and then water it and then leave it till most of it is drained. So the most of the soil is wet. And I tend to use the disposable food things that come with like a cover on them, you know, yogurt pots, salad pots, whatever. And I only half fill them. And then I tend to collect empty spice jars, little spice jars. So if it is very tiny seeds like parsley, I mix it with sand and then sprinkle it. And if it is any other seeds, then I just sprinkle it. And then I will have one spice jar with a slightly larger hole to put the soil over the seeds. So that's what I do with the very tiny seeds. If the seeds are slightly bigger, like beans or something, then I will use a pencil and poke it in the soil to the sort of approximately right depth. Rishi, I'm not taking over from you.
No, that's fine. Go for it. That's what we're here to share ideas. So
yeah.
Tend to use a pencil, and then I do it that way. And the reason why I will half fill the jar is that I am a bit of a lazy gardener. I don't like to have seed and pot on and pot on and pot on. So I tend to do this and then just leave them. They have enough room, take off the lid and then let them grow and then put them straight in the soil wherever they need to go. So that's the experiment at the moment. I can't show you because it's dark in the kitchen, but I've got several things on the windowsill. But that cardboard thing was very interesting. I tend to rely on the fact that I cover my seed planting with the lid of the container. And all kinds of, I mean, anything and everything that you get in food packaging works. And if it hasn't got a lid, just cling film will do. And in terms of spraying, I just use any empty detergent spray bottle I have, and that's it. That's me. And I make compost myself, so I tend to sieve it a little bit.
Mhm.
And if the compost is heavy, you just mix it with a little bit of fine sand. So that's where I am. But cosmos, I collect cosmos, like buckets of cosmos. And I am really like lazy with cosmos. So I have a very wide planting tray about April. And then I'll have a layer of soil and I'll have a layer of cosmos, literally a whole layer of cosmos seeds.
Nice.
And they grow, like hundreds of plants. So then when I'm transplanting them, I don't worry about it. I'll put 2 or 3 together. This is why I have so much cosmos in the garden, because, and I have been very lucky with cosmos. Every year it just explodes.
Beautiful.
That's really nice.
Doesn't come true though. They never come true to what the flower you've collected. They come any other color they feel like.
Nice. That's pretty cool. Yeah, there's a good tip about, using, I think that's what's nice, and it's just about reusing. I mean, I showed you some circular pots that I have here, but ideally, you can just use, you can use anything that any plastic pot
I mean,
work.
especially the salad containers, the transparent salad containers or
Yeah.
yogurt containers. If there's a label on it, you peel off the label and it's completely transparent. And the good thing with it is that you only half fill it. It's still all going to have light all round.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's just about being resourceful with what you've got. You don't have to go and buy loads of expensive stuff, really. You can just sort of use what you've got. And actually, Larry mentioned a good point, which is that you get this capillary matting, so you can put that under your seed trays, and that holds loads of moisture for your seed, so you're not having to. So actually, they can draw the moisture up through the bottom of the pots, which is pretty handy. I think we can send out some links or something about, or you can search capillary matting. She's put it in the chat, so you can have a little look at that online.
But even wet cardboard is okay. Not very thick cardboard, the thin cardboard, if you completely wet it and put it at the bottom.
I just want to say, I tested out using egg cartons. Egg cartons are quite good, the cardboard ones. So if you snip the egg cartons and then wet and then soak it and then put it at the bottom before you put the compost on, it's quite good because it's got that compartmentalization and it's quite good. It stops the soil from disappearing underneath as well, which helps as well with the water.
And the beans, runner beans in particular, are best planted in the cardboard thing of the toilet roll, and you cut it in half.
Okay.
Because the bean has a very long root, so you kind of put a whole bunch of toilet roll holders in a tray, cut them half, and then fill it with soil, and then put your bean on top. And then you pick up the whole thing and put it in the garden, and it decomposes.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that's great.
That works.
Exactly.
That works.
We did our leeks that way last year in the toilet roll, and it worked brilliantly for leeks.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say is that when you grow beans, runner beans, French beans, broad beans, whatever, at the end of the season, you leave at least 1 or 2 pods. You don't pick them. You let them dry out completely. And those are the seeds you use the following year. So you don't have to buy seeds.
Yeah, there you go. That makes a lot of sense. Good tips there for everyone. I think that's definitely handy because obviously Taj has a lot of experience growing some edible stuff, which I think a lot of people are interested in. So yeah, hopefully that information is pretty useful. Is anybody else who has any questions or wants to share any of their tips?
Can I share one tip?
Yeah, go for it.
So I don't know if anyone's had experience of growing like squash and other plants. And when you go to harden them off, I kind of take them outside in the day and bring them in the night. And when I've done that before, I've accidentally snapped a stem. So after you've kind of grown it with tender, loving care for so long, it's really disheartening to see it snap. But then I came up with a bit of an idea. So I got an onion, and you know the membrane that you get in between onions, in the different layers of the onion.
Yeah.
So it's very fiddly, but I couldn't bear to just throw the plant away. So I got one of the membrane off the onion, tied it like sellotape around the stem, and it fixed it. And it's worked with sunflowers and squash and courgette. So if your stem breaks, don't
That's amazing, yeah.
compost heap, just get a bit of onion membrane and wrap it round, and you can save your plant. So that's my little tip.
That's a really nice natural way to do. Yeah, that's a really nice way to do it, actually. Yeah, as O'Leary says, it's first aid, seedings, first seedings. Yeah, nice. Actually, and you've also said that Wilko has a capillary matting. If anybody's interested in that stuff, you just you can reuse it. Yeah. So yeah, has anybody else got any questions or anything to share?
Well, I've got a question if anybody has used, I was saying as the meeting started, I picked up a bag of vermiculite because I didn't have any seed compost. And then I was reading the back of the packet and it says you can use pure vermiculite to grow seeds. And I just wondered, has anybody tried that? Because it's appealing, because if the seed tray goes flying, as is likely in my house with people moving around, it looks a lot less messy, one, than soil all over the place, but also it's very lightweight. So I'm thinking the weight of the seed trays is going to be more manageable also.
Can I
go
answer
for it,
that maybe?
Yeah, please, Francis.
We bought vermiculite for the first time, but we used it 50-50
Right.
with seed compost, because it's ever so light. Every time I water it, it just washed all the seeds away. You know, it's a very strange substance. When you take it out of the bag, it's electrically charged. It flies all over the place. So I think I'm happier with 50-50. I think it would all blow away if it was just vermiculite.
Well, I'd sort of planned to mix it with the ordinary compost to kind of make something a little less kind of feed heavy. So I might revise my idea then. Thank you.
Well, the other thing is to try it and,
see, yeah, one tray with, one tray half and half. Yeah.
I'm also, with respect to seeds, the garden centers and everything gardening sort of starts charging you up in February that, you can start your seeds, and they do it in March as well. And I tend to feel more comfortable when I feel like I put some seeds just yesterday or day before, but I have a tendency to wait till end of March. And I'm happy if I have a later crop as opposed to an early crop. But I always feel that we don't know here when we get frost. And if you have things that you start in February or March, then you still have to hang on to them till quite late. And a lot of things like peas, beetroot, I tend to put straight in the soil when I feel like comfortable temperature. And it has worked. And last year, I was like, I had a packet of Swiss chard and I thought, damn it, it's out of date. And I just threw it in the rockery and I got so much Swiss chard, but there's about 6 plants coming up this year as well. So
Nice.
I think some things it's just like happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in our house, it's the number of windowsills that limits like how many seeds we can put in at a time. And you're sort of playing kind of checkers with the plants in the porch and, what can we put where? So yeah, if you put all too many seeds in one go in sort of February, when they start to need to get potted on and stuff, there's nowhere to put them. It all
Yeah.
fits nicely on the propagator now, but in a month's time, I'm going to be a bit stuck. So
Yeah.
being able to spread it out and then putting more out in the garden later, I think is a really good tip. Unless
Yeah,
you have a house with loads of windowsills.
And the craziest thing I did last year, because last year was such an annoying year with this COVID thing. So I had a big pot in which I didn't know what I was growing, because somebody gave me a big pot with a lot of compost. And I kept looking at it and I really didn't know what I wanted to do or if I wanted to do anything. And I had bought these really nice tomatoes from Europe, like different colors. And one of the tomato was like looking very manky. So I was so annoyed with the tomato and myself and everything that I sliced the tomato and I just rubbed the slices on the soil. And I had like 30 tomato plants came up.
Yeah.
The tomato.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was like I didn't wet the soil, I didn't put the tomatoes, I didn't cover it with soil, I didn't look at it tenderly, I didn't spray water, I didn't do any of those things, but I just rubbed it on. So, like anything works really.
Yeah, exactly. I think I sort of like the philosophy. I think you have the benefit of saying that when everything does work for you, you can get away with saying that. But I personally feel the same way, just sort of what's going to happen will happen, and in most cases it sort of seems to. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just you have to just experiment a little bit. I think just have a bit of fun with it.
I mean, I can grow a lot of things, especially shrubs. I have to rely on my neighbor, and tell her, I need this. Can you grow this for me? I need this. Can you grow this for me? Because something's not. But I think with me, I have like take it or leave it. I wouldn't worry too much if it didn't grow. Okay, whatever.
Okay. Well, I think is there any more bits and pieces? I think we'll shoot off by 9. So we've got a few 5 more minutes, and we can sort of.
I was going to ask if people don't mind if they could turn their cameras on, if we could get a group shot. It's a shame a couple of people had to go, and if everyone's okay with me popping this on to Instagram and Facebook, just look like you've had a nice time.
No, fine. I have one question, because I got the seeds. I received some seeds, and looking through it, I know the corona's okay. That's fairly thingy. I always had quite big failures with basil. I don't know why in my house, even when you buy it from the supermarket, the potted one and separated, just the plant, basil always seems to just die. As in, sometimes it'll shoot up, and then also then everything will just wilt, despite of underwatering over. I basically tried everything, but basil always seems. So I'm not too sure, but I'll try it out and then see. But I've tried every year, and so far basil is the one herb that has never survived in this house.
Okay, so maybe with basil, I have a little story to tell now. My son Sachin is in Delhi. He's a photographer, and he has got fed up of buying basil because basil is expensive in Delhi. So what he did, he decided to grow it, and he put it in a seed tray with very light soil, and he covered it with wetted and covered it with cling film, and then he put it on top of his fridge, because he said on top of the fridge is a warm place. Okay. And he had a lot of basil germinated that way. And I agree with you, I have not been successful with basil at all, but this is what he has done, and it has worked.
Okay, I'll have her try, because basil, seriously, I've bought basil plants, separated them, tried various different locations around the house, but it's the one herb that's just always failed. And then I also received the other one, the squash called redcon. Does this type need a bit of a soaking beforehand to try to get it going?
Anybody have some tips there?
I haven't even looked at my seed, what I've got in my seed envelope. But trust me, if I've got basil seeds there, I'm going to go to Asta, buy 5 plants, bring them, put them in 15 and give it to you. Because definitely one one basil plant from Asta, you can divide it into 5 and have 5 pots.
Charles will know you're cheating now. You didn't know. You should have been.
Yeah, so I have to admit, I think this basil is gonna be a hit and miss for me, but we'll try it and see. And then the only thing I want to ask is the squash. Would it be better to have a soaking to get it going or not?
I've got the same seeds, and I think the best thing is to put it into a Google search, because I don't know either.
Yeah, because I've had a few like mixed successes with other stuff, but squash I'm not just too sure, just whether, because it's got quite a hard coat, so I'm just wondering if like a soaking and warm thing beforehand to try to get it to soften first before sticking into some soil.
Well, we can take a little look into it for you, and then we'll send something over. I'll have a little look and see if there's any tips.
Yeah, I'm just looking now. It says about sweet peas and things need to be soaked, but I'm just trying to see.
Question is, does anybody still have the original seed envelope to check on the back if it has any recommendation? Did any of us?
I think on the whole, if you have large seeds, then if you soak them and then if you put it in a cotton cloth and leave it with some covered upside down, then I think they sprout and come up very quickly. We do that with the Indian herb, the fenugreek. We always soak it in water for a while, then drain the water, then put it in a cloth and cover it, and then leave it for 1 day. I do that with the peas. I tend to soak peas because I think if the seed looks hard, then it's going to take longer to germinate. That's my theory.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for all the suggestions. I think I guess we're coming towards the end. I was just going to ask is if there's any interest in doing sort of a potting on to help on the next step of what you need to do once these have germinated and whatnot. I mean, yeah, you give us a shout if you are interested, and we'll have a little think into it. A few people have had to leave so far, but yeah, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining today. And yeah, it's been good to hear everyone sharing their ideas and their thoughts, really. So hopefully sometime we can get together in the garden when it's possible.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And Leary says there's a tip. The tip with squash is to plant on their sides.
Oh, so not that way, that way.
Yeah. Wait, let me open up the packet. Okay, so plant. Right, let's see if I can slowly direct this. So we're planting that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sideways.
That one. Is it the same one? The red curry.
Yeah. Yes. Red coon seed. So if I plant it sideways on, so like rather than putting on, sorry, so rather than putting it flat, kind of like that in, so it's like the pointy edge.
I think the thing to do is maybe try some on the side and some and see what happens. I don't know why that's the tip.
It says on this pack that you should soak the seed overnight. So if it's this one, if it's red curry.
Red curry,
yeah, Sarah Raven. I just remembered that I had these sitting next to me. Sarah Raven says, sow under cover late March to May, soak seed overnight, then sow 2.5 centimeters deep in a 9-inch pot.
Okay.
Right. Very specific.
I was just going to ask if people have lovely seedlings coming up and they feel like taking photos, they always are wonderful things to put on Facebook and everything. So if you want to email them in or put them on the WhatsApp group, I would love to pop them onto Facebook because I think everyone gets really excited. I know I do. And I always feel really envious because everyone's seeds always come up before mine do. So I start going, what have I done wrong? And then about 10 days later, mine pop up. But So if you get lovely seedlings up within, you know, a nice short time, I would love permission to use your photos if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
we
can
can-
send you a photo of my purple sprouting broccoli.
Oh,
It's like-
always,
It's
Taj.
amazing.
Photos of everything.
I look at it and, you know, like, wow. And I only cut off the tips and it comes up again and again. So I can
We have some in the community garden as well.
I have never grown it from seed myself. I don't know whether my neighbor gets it or not. We split them, but we plant them in about June or July, and then we harvest it now.
Brilliant.
So I will look into it, and we can put it in the community garden. They grow almost 2.5 feet, and there's literally like this much purple sprouting broccoli
Yeah.
on each. It's
Wow.
very beautiful plant as well.
Yeah.
I'll take some photos tomorrow.
Yeah,
There's some there now in the garden.
at the moment,
is.
haven't we?
Yeah,
There's
I
one
saw.
plant, yeah, there's 1 or 2 plants in the garden right now, actually, the purple sprouting. So.
Which
Yeah.
I have a feeling, did they come from the Capel Manor? They were some of their
Yeah.
plants, I think.
Was
So,
that the mystery one? There was one that was growing on. We thought it was some kind of brassica, but we couldn't work out what it was. Is that it?
I think that's the one.
Ah, okay.
Because we didn't necessarily get plant labels with them all. It's when the college had to close down because of COVID, and Susanna kindly got some of their plants and gifted them to us. So I think we may have known what we were sort of getting, but we didn't necessarily. They were not very big plants, so there was a bit of guesswork as it's a brassica of some sort. But now it's got the little purple sprouty broccoli look. So.
A good reminder of Rish's tip to label,
Yes, label.
or just have a lottery and enjoy the fun.
Yeah.
You can identify it afterwards.
I think it was probably mine because I have some spare ones.
Oh, did
So
you put them in, George? Yay!
Oh,
Yeah.
nice,
I planted it.
Yay!
nice.
Good.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's
Growing
growing
well.
nicely, so yeah, thanks a lot. Good stuff.
Yeah,
We'll
wonderful.
go and do the same this year as well.
Yay!
Yeah.
You. So wrongly attributed because we thought, okay, don't remember anyone. Yay! Brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks everyone. Hopefully we'll see you soon and we'll be in touch and let us know how your plants get along and send us some pictures and whatnot. Yeah.